It looks like a pretty good crop out there. I don't know that I'd say it's probably going to be a great crop this fall.
Hello, and welcome to this extra edition of the State of Soy. I'm Michaela Jordan, joined today at the Becknology Field Days in Colfax, Iowa, with friend of the Iowa Soybean Farmer partner, Beck's Hybrids. We're with field sales agronomist Lee Koenigsfeld, and we're talking through what the conditions of Iowa soybeans look like here and now in the month of August. Lee, start by giving us an update on what field conditions are like and what Iowa soybeans are looking like in the field this year.
So a lot of our soybeans have kind of reached that R4, R5 time frame. So we're going into kind of what I like to call maybe the second ugly duckling phase of soybeans, where they start getting really big, lots of foliage on there, really green, and they can start to kind of maybe get a little bit twisted up, a little bit of lodging. But typically what we see then is once they start to drop petioles, we'll get some good stand back up out of those things. The main issues that we're running into right now is just a little bit of excess moisture for the most part, moving across all of the state and definitely in northeast Iowa where I cover, which has definitely negatively affected the soybeans a little bit. It looks like a pretty good crop out there. I don't know that I'd say it's probably going to be a great crop potentially this fall.
This past July was nearly record-setting when it came to water levels, sitting as the second highest rainfall amount for the month of July, just behind the 1993 floods. With all that excess moisture, what is that doing to the soybean crop?
Unfortunately for beans, they actually handle dry weather a lot better than what they handle excessive moisture. And so what we're seeing is a lot of increased disease pressure now starting to show up. In the month of July in particular, we saw some late season Phytophthora start to pop up in certain varieties that maybe aren't as resistant as other ones. Now we're starting to see some of those foliar diseases that set in earlier in the growing season really start to flare up. Big one being SDS, and then up in northeast Iowa, white mold is starting to show up as well too. So those are kind of our big disease issues that we're fighting right now.
What other pests and diseases have you been seeing throughout the 2025 growing season?
A little bit of Japanese beetle pressure, pretty isolated. Insects for the most part have been a pretty low pressure thing so far this year. Maybe some really isolated pockets of aphids, but nothing really widespread as far as insect or pest pressure goes. The big focus this year has been the disease pressure.
If farmers are out scouting their bean fields, looking for those different diseases and pests that you mentioned, what should they be looking for?
So for SDS, what we're going to be looking for at this point in time of the year is that interveinal necrosis starting to move up that canopy. The one thing we do have to do with SDS to differentiate it from brown stem rot, which is another disease we are seeing a little bit out there, but just doesn't have the widespread coverage that what SDS is going to have, is we do need to split those stems, make sure that we've got a good healthy white pith, and that'll tell us for sure that we're dealing with an SDS infection as opposed to a brown stem rot, which will give us that brown pith then. White mold, what you're going to be looking for there is it'll look like just a few scattered plants basically that have essentially died early. Go out there, kind of pull that canopy back, and what you'll see is that white fungal body there with the sclerotia there on those plants, and that'll kind of give an indicator that we've got white mold there, and if conditions are right, could continue to see it to spread, unfortunately. As far as managing those diseases, the window's kind of passed, especially for white mold and SDS. SDS infects very early on in the growing season. We've got those cool, wet conditions, which we definitely fought a little bit. And then white mold obviously infects through dead flower tissue, and so moisture there. We've got good environment for those fruiting bodies of that fungus to infect through that dead plant tissue, and so that management needed to be done more on that R1, R3 time frame there. So at this point in time, the best thing we could do is take notes, know where we've got that disease pressure so that we're ready for that in future years, and we can make better variety selection, as well as potentially look at some additional in-season options with like fungicide or seed treatment upgrades that we can go through.
You mentioned a little bit about Japanese beetles and other pests that may be starting to attack the plants. Is there anything farmers can do between now and harvest to help mitigate the risk that comes with those pests or the damage that they could be causing?
Probably nothing that's going to be super economical. I've seen them in very small populations, nothing that I would say is going to warrant an insecticide application this late into the growing season. When we're talking R4, R5 soybeans, we're going to have to get a lot of defoliation before it's probably going to make a lot of sense to make that insecticide pass to control those insects. So it's probably something that at this point in time in the growing season, that cake's kind of been baked, so to speak. So.
How do you see the current diseases like SDS and white mold impacting soybean yields this year?
Yeah, so white mold can have a very large negative effect really quickly on soybeans, unfortunately. And so a bean crop that can look really good can turn really ugly in a short amount of time, given the ability of white molds basically to spread throughout the field and really have major detrimental effects. I think you could probably see up to like 80% yield loss, giving bad enough white mold infection. SDS can be somewhere probably in that 20 to 70% range as far as yield loss goes, just depending on how severe it ends up getting. Now, if we just keep these really small isolated pockets, you'll see a yield loss in those isolated pockets, but whole field averages then are going to hopefully help make up for just those isolated pockets. So that's the best thing we can kind of hope for, is that we keep those diseases kind of isolated into the pockets that we're seeing them in right now, and hopefully Mother Nature can give us a little bit of a break here and we don't see those diseases just continue to go widespread field wide.
Based on what you're seeing in your region of the state, you're based out of Waterloo, what do you predict yields will be around this year? Any estimate?
Yeah, so kind of like I said earlier, I'm anticipating a good soybean crop. I'm not anticipating a great soybean crop. We've had really good soybean yields the last 2 years for the most part across the state. I definitely think we're taking a step back from that. I'm guessing we'll probably see field averages anywhere from the mid 50s probably up into maybe low 70s on some really good, really well-drained acres. But I don't think there's gonna be a lot of guys who are gonna be talking about farm averages breaking records basically this year. So I think it's gonna be good.
It feels like every growing season there's different challenges that arise. Last year we faced drought conditions, and this year we've got excess moisture. What is Beck's doing to help farmers overcome those challenges and remain productive and profitable during the never-ending challenges that come out in the field?
Yeah, so one of the things that Beck's does really well is what we're at today here, and that's a practical farm research location where we test hundreds of different products every year to find out what products are going to be good for us, which ones pencil, give us that return on investment so that farmers have a good idea if they want to try to spend some extra money on managing their soybean crop. The other thing that we can do as well too is from a commitment reward standpoint, we can certainly come alongside them, help them free up some capital and assets on the farm and come alongside them from a financial standpoint that can benefit the whole operation there as well too. And we've also got a seed treatment upgrades that can definitely help from diseases, as well as a fantastic product lineup.
Today at the field day, we're showcasing some of the practical farms research. Is there anything coming down the pipeline that excites you as an agronomist that you think farmers will really benefit from?
We've got some nano technologies, I would say, that we're starting to look at, and we've seen them in beans, and I think that could be really beneficial on soybeans moving into the future, is helping get some of those maybe foliar feed options, get them moved into the plant more efficiently, so we can really start maybe looking at trying to push those soybeans yields as high as we can.
If somebody is interested in learning more about the technology that Beck's has, or how Beck's can help from an agronomist or field perspective, where can they go to learn more?
www.beckshybrids.com is always a great place to start. That'll get you in touch with all of our PFR data that we have stored from years past, as well as what we're seeing so far this year too. The other thing is to reach out to your local dealer, your local seed advisor, and they can certainly get in touch with me if we need to.
Every year there's different challenges that arise in the field, but friend of the Iowa soybean farmer, Beck's Hybrids, is here to help farmers. Thank you to Lee and the rest of the Beck's team for their continued support of Iowa soybean farmers and the Iowa Soybean Association. Reporting for this edition of the State of Soy, I'm Michaela Jordan.